What you're about to witness are the 10 reasons why the Tension Board 2 is the best wall ever.
Ever.
First things first, number one hold set, 2 layouts. You got the mirror, and right here you have the spray. 1 hold set, 2 layouts, your choice. You choose which wall to put up based on the characteristics that most appeal to you. With the mirror, obviously, you have the same hold on the right side as you do on the left. You can flip the boulders, send it on the left, then try it on the right. Very good if you're trying to have a more focused session and highlight strengths and weaknesses on either side. If you'd like to go with the spray, it's most likely because you want generally more possibilities with the boulders. Because it's not mirrored, each hold is specifically laid out in a unique place that's not going to be on the other side of the median. In general, the spray layout has holds at more extreme orientations, and the very good holds, jugs, in cuts, things like that, they're more relegated to the outer portions of the wall, whereas the mirror, you're gonna find a lot more balance within the hold types and generally less aggressive hold orientations. The Tension Board 2 gives you the option between the mirror layout and the spray layout without having to buy different hold sets or add-on purchases, all that bullshit. And let's say years down the road, you wanna switch it up, get even more variety out of the wall, you can switch it from one to the other. It's very simple.
Number 2, wood versus plastic. We've got wood holds and we've got plastic holds. Wood holds obviously are a thing. We love them for a couple of reasons. I mean, one, they're gonna be easier on the skin, but even more than that, I really just like the sort of climbing style that they promote. You have to pay attention, you have to really engage with your hands all the way through to the tips of toes. It's at the same time like a really fun climbing experience, but also kind of unforgiving. The plastic holds give you the texture, and for a lot of different hold types, like especially flat edges and slopers, the texture is really a part of learning how to climb on holds like that, and they don't always work super well in wood. It also allows us to get a little bit more wild with the shapes. Plastic allows you to cast more intricate shapes, and it's something that doesn't work quite as well in wood. So we wanted to bring kind of the full experience to this wall by incorporating both the wooden holds and the textured plastic holds. The dual text on these plastic holds, it's there for 2 reasons. First of all, it looks pretty easy. Number 2, it really changes the way that you're able to interact with a hold. And we really tried to keep in mind how these boards climb and really tried to pay attention to where we added the dual text and where we didn't. So we didn't just blanket like every hold is dual text except for the grip profile. We actually left texture on the backs of some holds because we knew where they were gonna be on the wall and what they were gonna be used for, so that you can actually use these textured portions in a very like intentional way as you pass the hold. The holds were really dual text with purpose in order to kind of accentuate the variety of climbing experience that you can have on this wall. Climbing is just a super varied activity, right? Depending on the area that you're climbing in, holds are more textured or less textured. And even within a singular boulder problem, sometimes part of what makes a climb difficult is one of the holds is slicker than the rest or something like that. So when you can incorporate both the textured plastic and the wood holds, it really adds another element of skill expression for the climber, being able to deal with multiple textures throughout a climb, having to pay attention to when those things change and what you can do with a textured hold versus what you can do with a wood hold.
Reason number 3 should have been number 1 to me. 145 unique shapes. It's important to make the distinction that just because a hold is unique doesn't necessarily mean that it does something different. So these holds are unique and they do something different. Anybody can make unique shapes that do the same thing over and over and over again. In fact, it's been done before. But to make 145 unique shapes that all are categorically different and unique, that is a different thing. This is why we always come back to the spray wall, the essence of the spray wall. What makes a great spray wall? It's a variety of holds that all have a unique character. That's what we've done here. From double undercling roof jugs to micro crimps to slopers, shallow pinches, fat pinches, two for rails. I could go on and on and on with the types of holds that we have. The intentionality and the purpose of everything is very apparent when you start looking at and climbing on the board. Will, would you like to talk a little bit about hold profile?
Yeah, so we tried to do a couple of unique things with the holds on this board. One of the first things that you'll probably notice when you look at it is that the footprints of the holds are not all the same. We've got some holds that are very large that you can almost 3-point match, and we have holds that are like very tiny. We did this for a couple of reasons, but the main thing is I really wanted to try to break up the space on the board a little bit more effectively. I don't like when I look at standardized boards and all I can see is like a grid of points. I really want it to just look like a full climbing wall and play with the space a little bit more. So what we're able to do is have larger footprint holds that are kind of filled in with smaller and medium-sized holds. It just gives the wall a little bit more character, and it also allows us to give the climber an opportunity to explore different movements and sequences that when all the holds are really the same size, you don't get as much out of them, I don't think. Something we had to be really careful with when adding these larger holds is paying close attention to how far off the wall they stick out so you're not like running your elbow into it, and also still maintaining access to the smaller holds that are positioned around the larger holds. So even though a lot of these holds have like a pretty large footprint, they don't actually stick out from the wall that much. Like this big sloper, like you're getting that kind of big sloper experience, but it hardly sticks out any further than say this smaller wooden hold right next to it. And we're also able to kind of play with where the dual text is and the holds that go around so that every hold is able to be utilized on the board kind of no matter where it is, whether it's by a big hold or not. Like you're still gonna have access to it and you're still gonna be able to climb through it.
Number 5 is the footholds.
The footholds.
Don't skimp on the footholds. In fact, it's one of the pieces that has really sort of united the board into what it is. And it's another thing that I think I need your help with in really explaining why it's important to have diversity of feet. We have 11 unique footholds, most of which through like a turn become much, much different. And you're gonna experience that all over the board in both the mirror and the spray.
Yeah, so we tried to be really kind of economical with the footholds and try and incorporate a broad range of experiences in kind of a reasonable number of footholds. So we ended up with 11, and they really run the range of kind of difficulty and shape. Using the dual text and kind of manipulating the shape of the hold to help make them really directional, or making it easier to approach a foot from one direction as opposed to another, it really helps you experience more interesting foot sequences rather than just kind of stepping on holds. A lot of the times on this wall, some of the hardest parts of a boulder problem are actually the way that you actually transition your feet from one side of your body to another as opposed to just trying to grab a small hold. So the thing that's really typical on spray walls kind of traditionally is this idea of feet tracing hands. So you're really not adding a lot of footholds, and a lot of the difficulty comes from having to figure out how to use your feet on the handholds that you just passed. This is awesome. I mean, I think we all have a great time climbing on climbs like that, but it's a pretty narrow experience. And so we tried to incorporate a lot more footholds on this wall, and also making sure that they extend pretty far up the wall panel to the point where we've even got footholds all the way up here. That may seem kind of silly, but you end up with some really unique setting opportunities and really cool diversity of movement that you really can't get unless you have a broad range of footholds kind of sprinkled throughout the whole wall. Another thing that's really important to mention, different kinds of rock produce different kinds of holds and therefore different climbing experiences, right? So we tried to incorporate a lot of different feelings that we get from different rocks and different climbing areas. One of the smallest feet we have is this kind of quintessential like granite thumbnail edge. This is something that we really wanted to make sure we had represented on the wall, because so often difficulties in climbing have to do with being super precise on a foot and then really trusting that you're on it correctly and pushing on it. Then we also have things like this where we're really just giving you a smear. There's no edge to this at all. And the thing that smears do is it really forces you to pay a lot of attention to where your body is in space and how you're applying pressure onto a foothold. We've also got holds that really lean into this sort of dual texture effect and tip off the wall plane in a way that makes the hold really directional. So if you're approaching it from one side, it's very difficult to step on, and if you're approaching it from another side, it's a little bit easier. And this allows you to get more creative with foot sequences, and it also adds just kind of an extra element of difficulty to the wall. Number 6, a wide variety of grades at every angle. An important consideration with these type of walls where you're dealing with the adjustable angle is making sure that the holds are shaped in such a way that they are usable at all these different angles and also don't become uncomfortable at a certain angle. So we paid special attention to that, and what we also really tried to make sure is that at every angle, you're getting a broad range of hold types and difficulties. So you really can climb really difficult boulders at a low angle, and you can actually climb pretty easy boulders at a very steep angle. So you're not gonna get stuck climbing a certain difficulty at a specific angle every time. We've really incorporated a ton of variety there.
Yeah, I think one thing that I would add is the nature of the hard versus easy boulders. They all get to be unique and diverse within their style. And I think that that's an important attribute. No matter the angle and no matter the difficulty, you can get a broad range of styles, whether it's V2 or V12. It's not necessarily just power blocks on the harder stuff. You can have ticky-tacky hard climbs, and you can have powerful, easy climbs. Number 7, no footholds on the kickboard. You might be like, don't you want footholds on the kickboard? And I'm like, no. Why? Having a bunch of footholds on the kicker actually decreases the effective angle at the angle that you're trying to climb on. If you have a boulder and you're climbing at 50 degrees and you start with footholds on the kicker, you're actually not climbing at 50 degrees. Second reason why it's good to not have footholds on the kicker, it's because no matter what crop you have the board in, no matter where that board is, whether or not you can have a kicker or whether or not you can't, it's going to unify the boulders that are in the app and create an experience that's shared between everyone. Last thing about the kicker, but not least, eliminating the necessity of the kicker allows the board to be put in spaces that have more constraints, increases the versatility of where you can put it. Number 8, this one's very important to me. Climbing exists on a spectrum, especially indoor climbing exists on this spectrum, and on one side you have this sort of pure training, whether it's hangboarding or campus boarding, using the block, things like the block, and then on all the way on the other side you have this very, very modern, we'll call them comp boulders or climbing in the gym on futuristic movement. The current boards that are on the market, they exist on either end of this spectrum. You're either climbing on plastic holds that resemble the climbing gym, that essentially give you the same experience as the climbing gym, or you're climbing on a wall that's essentially purely meant for training, very similar to hangboarding or campus boarding, and both of these are fine, but there has never been a board that exists in the middle until now. The Tension Board 2 allows you to have a focused training experience if that's what you want. It can also be used as an extension of the climbing gym, where you get to experience really fun, really creative movement on plastic and wood. This board doesn't dictate what kind of session you have. You get to decide what kind of session you want to have. Number 9, we're going to talk about board sizes and the crops.
With the TB2, we for the first time have a 12 by 12 size, which is the largest size for the wall. But we also have different cropped smaller sizes. So we can lower the height to 10 feet. And so you have a 10-foot tall board that can either be 12 foot wide or 8 foot wide. And you can also have a 12-foot wall that's either 8 foot wide or 12 foot wide. We designed the layout with all of these smaller crops in mind. So even when you crop the wall down to its smallest size, the 10-foot tall, 8-foot wide, it's the same core concept that you're gonna experience on the 12-foot by 12-foot, it's just less space. One of the sizes we're actually most excited about with this wall is the 10-foot tall, 12-foot wide version. This fits really easily like into a garage or a large room, height-wise, and your finish row is right here at 15. So if you kind of place yourself on the wall, you get a ton of wall square footage with the 10 foot tall, 12 foot wide. It's actually more wall square footage than a 12 foot tall, 8 foot wide board, which is our standard tension board 1 size. And you're able to get all that square footage without having to have a really tall vertical height requirement. For a lot of American garages, width is less of a concern than height. And so being able to get that 10 foot tall, 12 foot wide in gives you kind of an insane climbing experience in your home.
All right, number 10.
The database. The database is super important. The wall is only as good as the climbs that are on it. And so something that we decided to do straight away with this board is to treat it in many ways like a gym. And so we kind of built a bell curve of different grades and styles that we wanted to make sure to incorporate on the board, and set about ourselves and with other professional route setters and climbers to put in some really high quality climbs like right off the bat.
And all the different crops of the board even. And one thing that's very cool about this is that at any point, if you're scrolling through climbs not feeling inspired, you can go to the tension account on the app and it's going to be full of 5-star banger boulders.
There's nothing that turns me off more than when I open up the app, like to start my session and like kind of start scrolling through like the first couple of climbs and like, not feeling it, not feeling it. We wanted to kind of give people an opportunity to eliminate that. You can just filter for tension climbing, go to the tension climbing account, and we have 500 plus boulders already where you can be confident like these are good ones. I'm gonna have a good time.
Stop sacrificing your session, scrolling through boulder problems. Just go straight to the source. So this is something we're gonna do regularly.
Yeah.
Regularly, we're gonna be dropping groups of boulders, like a deck, into the app, full of new and fresh climbs, similar to a setting rotation. This is the experience in the gym. The route setters strip and set, kind of do the rotation. Why not do that with our app? We are your setting team, and we're super excited to just kind of continue to load the app with high quality climbs over and over and over and over again. That's the 10 reasons why this is the best one. All the way from each hold individually to how those holds work together, to how they work on an adjustable angle, to the boulders themselves and the database. Everything is extremely intentional with the way that it's been designed. And that's why it's taken so long for it to come out. We'd love to hear from you. Feel free to leave a comment below, like the video, subscribe, do all the things, and we will continue to drop content about the Tension Board 2. Tell us what you want to see, and we out.
We out.